we don't know what's going on there. We saw it with Rossi as well, but Ryan Hunter-Reay, obviously a very popular driver at the track, wasn't happy with his qualification, didn't talk to the press, went straight back to his bus and basically shut himself down. So what are your thoughts?
It just says what the issue with Ryan Hunter-Reay has been the last several years. He is a very below-average qualifier. He just doesn't – I don't know if it's one of those things where he just can't get himself up for it to the point where he could perform or what the case is, but we keep seeing him have to make these runs through the field on race day, particularly in the Indy 500. He just cannot cut it in qualifying mode anymore, and it takes a lot out of you to have to come from mid-pack or the back of the pack every time to become a contender. And while, yes, he's one of the most strongest drivers we've seen recently on race day when we get to the Indy 500 and the IndyCar Grand Prix, he just gives himself so much to do that eventually you wonder how many times you can keep going to the well and taking a little bit out before you go to the well and it's dry. And that may be starting to come here with Ryan Hunter-Reay if he struggles in qualifying next weekend for the Indy 500 and has to come from mid-pack or the back of the pack again.
So we had a couple of press conferences yesterday at the track. One of my favorites, and certainly I wrote two articles on SpeedwayDigest.com. Go check it out. So, Fliz promotion. But one of the pressers was from Rahal Letterman Racing with United Rentals and a company called Brave Mind. And so we know that United Rentals and Rahal Letterman Racing, David Letterman was there. Fun interview to talk with him, too. That was really fun. We've got that up on social media. Rahal Letterman Racing announced that they had joined, sponsored the United Rentals, the world's largest equipment rental, blah, blah, blah. But the goal is raising over $1 million for the troops. And as we know, they're very active in turns for the troops and Troops Strong. But they teamed up with Soldier Strong and a company called Brave Mind to use virtual reality technology. And I've got the demo up on social media, so you have to go check that out, of how virtual reality is able to help veterans in PTSD. So hats off to Rahal Letterman Racing. Obviously, for every completed turn today and at IndyCar, there's money being raised for the troops. And I got to take my hats off to Rahal Letterman Racing. I'm a huge supporter of the troops, and that's one of the big reasons that I'm a big personal fan of Graham Rahal. You know I'm going to mess it up. That's why I'm avoiding saying it. Sonono, but from Japan. Obviously, the other drivers with Rahal Letterman Racing. So what are your thoughts about this partnership and raising money for the veterans using virtual reality? And let's talk a little bit about Graham Rahal. He qualified P7 in today's race.
Folds of Honor, obviously, was with them last year. It's good to see that they're doing it with another organization. That's always a good thing. I just wish, though, that they would be doing this and supporting them the right way, where it's not altering the race like what NASCAR is doing by doing it right in the middle of the race. I mean, what's wrong with doing it during pre-race? I mean, there's a reason why they play taps during the pre-race. It's for the troops at Indy. There's a reason they do the military march in front of the crowd during back home again in Indiana. It is during the pre-race. I don't know why you're doing it during the race. I think you could easily do it at Charlotte during the pre-race, and it would be just as fine as you're doing it during the race. I think I don't understand what NASCAR's fans have such a negative view toward that, but that's just my view on that personally. I think during pre-race it's okay. You don't need to do it during the race and throw a yellow for it. But ultimately, I think with Graham Rahal, the same thing with Ryan Hunter-Reay. Can he qualify well enough so he doesn't have nearly the work to do on race day that he has had to do over the years? If he could be a stronger qualifier and be there right up with, say, his teammate Takuma Sato, I think he certainly stands a good chance of being a contender on race day. The thing is, though, can he get that job done when it counts? And that's the thing that's been the big mental block for Graham Rahal. He just has not figured out this four-lap qualifying game at the Speedway.
You know, I want to talk about another storyline that's hanging out there, and that is Ed Jones, Ed Carpenter Racing. First year with Ed Carpenter Racing. How exciting is this kid? But I call them all kids. But nonetheless, these younger drivers. But he deserves a break. And Ed Carpenter has had a way of finding drivers. And let's not forget when Ed Carpenter was with Sarah Fisher and Joseph Newgarden. He has a way of finding drivers and running them underneath the radar. Ed Jones, Ed Carpenter Racing. Ed Jones qualifies P5 in today's Grand Prix.
Yeah, but Ed Jones is in probably the biggest dry spell of his career. He was disappointing last year with the Ganassi team. And let's look at his results this year coming into the month of May. He's placed no better than 14th in any of the first 4 races. That is much less than was expected from a guy that dominated Indy Lights for 2 seasons, came in guns blazing in his first year in the IndyCar Series, was a contender to win the Indy 500, crashed out early in last year's Indy 500, was a non-factor in the IndyCar Grand Prix. I think the question is which is the real Ed Jones right now? Is it the Ed Jones that we are currently getting, or is it the Ed Jones that was lights out dominant in the Indy Lights? That's the question in my mind, Tom, is this the real Ed Jones, or was that the real Ed Jones? Will the real one please stand up for me?
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about 2. Let's see where I'm at here on my notes here. I got my papers going everywhere. So we talked about Joseph Newgarden. I want to talk about Simon Pattison. Obviously not where he wants to be at as well. Certainly right down there. When you look at where Will Power was at. Okay, he was at P6, but still. Will Power, Graham Rahal, and Simon Pattison all right there. But for Will Power, I mean, Will Power is only one of 2 winners of the Grand Prix that has ever happened. Again, Will Power is a Penske guy. We talked about the non-showing of some big names, and Penske is the biggest stable at the track, and they could not do a good showing, Chip Ganassi show all day long. But Simon Pattison and Will Power, what say you, sir?
Well, the thing is, though, with these power teams, it's not that you are a power team. It's what you do with that power that makes you effective or ineffective. And they did not take advantage of the assets that they had, especially not yesterday. And that's why they're barred back in the pack. And some of these lesser teams, not necessarily weaker teams, but lesser in terms of funds and equipment, were able to beat them. So I think right now it's how you effectively use what the resources you have, and that's how you succeed or fail. But Will Power certainly cannot be counted out. I'd say Simon Pagenaud cannot be counted out. The thing with Pagenaud, though, I still have to question whether or not he has figured out this DeLauro era kit yet. He still seems to be just miles behind his 3 other teammates at Team Penske right now. If you want me to compare him against Newgarden, Power, and Castroneves looking ahead to the month of May of the Indy 500, I'd say he is their 4th best option right now looking ahead to the greatest spectacle of racing at this point if you're talking about Simon Pagenaud and Team Penske.
All right, well, let's get into the moment has arrived. We're going to go through all 24 cars, and I know we'll probably overlap some of them that we've already talked about. We also want to make sure that we incorporate these 24 cars with your griditology. So we're just going to start from the top, even though we've made this our headline in our story. Obviously, Chip Ganassi, rookie Felix Rosenfeld gets from Sweden, gets the P1 position. Chip Ganassi gets P1 and P2, and obviously we're going to get to Scott Dixon here in just a minute, but we're going to go through all 24 cars in order. Hopefully we can get it all done here before Steve Wilson joins us, but if not, we'll continue on because the highlight of our show today is IndyCar Grand Prix. So, Matthew, your griditology, feel free to incorporate that anywhere as well. And before we do that, where can people find your griditology? I know that's one of the big things that you do every year, and we certainly use it as a source for us. You being our official IndyCar contributor as well. So we're going to let you kind of drive this next segment with the next 24 cars. But we'll start with P1 and Felix Rosenfeld, obviously a rookie.
Okay, my griditology, it's a little bit further down. I got to pad down the list on my tweets, but it's at Mattembury on Twitter. Felix Rosenqvist, I currently have him at number 9 on my griditology and big board. That's where it would be the borderline to make the cut. I think just because of the poor performance of the second Ganassi car last year with Ed Jones, which only qualified 26th, I have a feeling that this car, add to that Honda, I think is going to be more competitive than they were a year ago against the Chevrolets. They will be right in the thick of it, and I think Rosenqvist could possibly just sneak into that top nine at position number 9. Then you have Scott Dixon, who I have at position 3. Other than Ed Carpenter, he's the one that's won the polls at Indianapolis right now. So if Honda is a competitor, I'd have to assume Dixon's going to be right up there among the contenders. That's why I have him at 3, even though some, because of concerns of whether or not the Honda's going to have the power, have him further down the list. Jack Harvey. He certainly, I'd say right now, is one of the guys that is certainly going to be sweating bullets. I currently have him number 32 on my big board at this point. Remember, Meyershank Racing does not run ovals. This is the only oval event that they run during the year. And, again, Schmidt-Peterson had their problems with their oval program last year. So that's why Harvey is so down the list for Indy looking ahead. Colton Herta, remember, I had him at 30 at the start of the month, or the start of the Griditology run this year. I have him now all the way up to number 16 on my list. That would be the inside of row 6 for the man that won the Austin IndyCar Classic. Ed Jones, if he could take advantage of the car, I don't know if Ed Carpenter Racing is going to be the same power source as they were a year ago, but if you go by that case, he could be a contender for the top 9. I currently have him at 13. Will Power, I have solidly in the top 9. I have him currently as my number 1. I think there is no stronger qualifier right now, and even though he's never won the NTT Data P1 award at Indy, I think time for a first thing for everything. And I think right now, if you go by what's on the list, I think he is the man to beat for the pole coming up next weekend. Graham Rahal, again, single-car qualifying issues with Rahal. I have him behind Sato in my big board right now at 18. Simon Pagenaud, I have him barely making the top 9 at position number 8. Again, the question's about getting used to the Lara body style and the oval package. I just don't think he's going to be a contender for the pole. He will make the shootout, but the pole I don't think is going to be a possibility for Simon. Marcus Ericsson, qualified 9th for today's IndyCar Grand Prix, another guy with limited oval experience. I currently have him as the first on my last 4 in list at number 30. Sebastian Bourdais, I think, again, is going to be the top contender for the Coyne team. And I think a threat to make the top 9. I currently have him at number 7. That would be a top 9 qualifier. Sato, I just have outside the top 9 at number 10. I think the open test run was impressive, but the question is how many teams are really showing their true stuff and how many teams were sandbagging during that session. So it's unknown whether or not he has the potential to be a top 9 contender or not. Spencer Pigot made the top 9 last year. I have him just missing at 12 this time around. Newgarden, again, I don't think he's as big a pole threat as, say, Will Power, Elio Castroneves, but I have him in the top 9 at number 6. Santino Ferrucci, that's another tricky one. If the Coyne entries beyond Bourdais are competitive, he could be much higher up than 29 where I currently have him, but again, the lack of oval experience is a question mark. Elio. I know he's disappointed in the Fast 9 shootout the last few years, Tom, but you can't ignore the fact he's won pole at Indy 4 times. And that's why I have him currently at number 2 on my big board at this point, looking ahead to qualifying on the oval. And then you have Ryan Hunter-Reay, again, question mark, as strong a qualifier as a weak qualifier. I have him all the way at 14, which would be the middle of row 5. Rossi, I think if you talk about Andretti Autosport, the best threat for a pole position run would come from Alexander Rossi. I have him in at number 5. Hinchcliffe obviously failed to qualify last year, but I don't think with that concern in the way the embarrassment that caused for Schmidt, Peterson, Arrow, I think they're going to be a much more competitive ride. I have him at the top of the Schmidt cars at 17 right now. Pato O'Ward, another X factor. He certainly could go higher than the 23 position I've had, but then again, he didn't participate at the open test. Carlin looked suspect at the open test as well, so he could go up, could go down. And then Veach, my colleague David Land had him out of the field, and I could see that happening. I have him at 26 right now, which would be the middle of row 9. Mateus Laced, the lack of the Chevy advantage, I think, is going to hurt him. I have him from 11, where he was last year on the grid, all the way down to 19. You talk about the Carl